All right, everybody, welcome back to another deep dive.
Oh,
Today, we're getting into the fascinating world of negotiation.
yes, we are.
And, we always like to bring the best to help you guys level up your thinking and your skills.
Absolutely.
Today, we are going all the way to the top, learning from an absolute master, former FBI hostage negotiator Chris Voss.
That's great.
Now we're diving deep into his book.
Yep.
Never Split the Difference.
It's a great one.
Really fascinating read, and I think a lot of you guys are probably familiar with it already. But even if you are, I think you'll find some new insights in this deep dive because we're going beyond the book.
Yeah, that's right. We're bringing in research on cognitive biases.
Yes, exactly.
Behavioral economics.
All that good stuff that helps us understand not just what works, but why it works.
Absolutely. The psychology behind it.
Yeah.
Super fascinating.
Really, the mission here is to give you the tools and the knowledge to become a more persuasive and effective negotiator in any situation.
Any situation, exactly.
Not just hostage situations.
Yeah, no.
Although, I mean,
You never know.
Might come in handy.
You never know. Maybe that'll be a future episode someday.
There you go.
But yeah, so I mean, think about it like salary negotiations, buying a car,
Right.
Even handling like tricky family dynamics.
All negotiation.
It's all negotiation. Yes.
At its core,
human interaction.
you're learning from a guy who dealt with hostage situations.
I know.
But the core principles.
It's kind of crazy to think about.
But it's surprisingly relevant
They are.
to everyday life.
They really are.
So that's what we're going to be exploring today. So to help us kind of bridge that gap between like high stakes hostage scenarios and our own daily negotiation challenges.
Right.
We've got an expert with us today, someone who's studied this stuff in depth.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Welcome.
It's a fascinating topic.
So to kick things off, one of the things that I found really interesting about Voss's approach is that it actually kind of turned away from that traditional, like, getting to yes style of negotiation.
More rational academic approach.
Yeah, it's like very much favored by like business schools and all that.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's, a good approach in certain situations, but
the FBI
was like, nah.
Yeah, they're like, this isn't working for us.
Yeah.
We're dealing with
you need something.
Really volatile situations, and we need to get down to the nitty-gritty of emotions and psychology.
Yes, and I mean, this is where it gets really fascinating because, you think hostage negotiation, you think, okay.
They speak reason. Yeah.
It's all about, like, being rational and calm and...
Right. Keeping the situation
under control.
But Voss is like, no.
Yeah, he was like, that's
not quite
how it works.
Yeah.
We got to tap into that emotional level.
Yeah. So let's talk about that because one of the things that I found most surprising, and I think a lot of our listeners will too, is his emphasis on the power of no.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Usually we go into a negotiation like we want to hear yes.
Right. Exactly. Yes is the goal.
Yes is the goal. But Voss actually says no is our friend.
No is our friend. That's interesting.
So help me understand this. Why is getting to know so important?
Right. Because that is counterintuitive.
It is counterintuitive.
What we normally think.
Absolutely.
About negotiation. So the way I like to think about it is when someone's pushing you for a yes, right? Don't you instinctively kind of resist?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
sure.
You feel like they're trying to box you in?
Yeah.
Take away your control?
Totally.
And Voss realized this, especially in high-pressure situations.
Right.
People need to feel safe saying no. It gives them that sense of autonomy, control.
Okay.
Which is crucial.
So it's almost like they're giving up a little bit of power.
Exactly.
By saying no.
And that makes them more open to hearing.
To actually listening.
To what you have to say.
Yeah, this is so interesting because I had this experience just the other day.
Oh, really?
With a telemarketer.
Oh, yeah.
And they were relentless. They just wouldn't take no for an answer.
Oh, I hate that.
It was like...
The hard sell.
The hard sell.
Yeah.
And I was so irritated by the end of it, like there was no way I was going to agree to anything.
Right.
They said I felt like...
Totally manipulated.
Completely manipulated, yeah. And I think...
that's what we want to avoid.
That's the opposite.
In a negotiation.
Of what we want, yeah. And Voss even used this with a potential terrorist recruit.
Oh, wow.
Right? So instead of pushing for a yes...
Interesting.
He acknowledged the recruit's right to say no.
Okay.
And focused on understanding his motivations.
So instead of just trying to shut him down.
Shut him down, yeah.
Actually.
He opened the door.
Open the door.
To dialogue. To dialogue.
Which is fascinating.
Which is fascinating.
So I'm curious how we take this idea of no and actually apply it in, like, say, a salary negotiation.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to walk into my boss's office and just be like, no.
No, not like that.
Right.
It's not about literally saying no all the time. It's about creating that space for the other person to express their reservations.
Okay.
So instead of pushing for an immediate yes, you might ask some open-ended questions like, what are your concerns about this? What would need to happen for this to work for you?
So you're kind of subtly shifting the dynamic.
Exactly.
Giving them a sense of control. Which then makes them more receptive to your ideas.
To your ideas, exactly.
This is where I feel like it starts to get into,
it's so...
like, Jedi mind trick territory.
A little bit, yeah.
But there's definitely
in a good way.
Psychology at play here. And it leads right into another powerful technique that Voss calls tactical empathy.
Oh, yeah. Tactical empathy. Let's dive into that because that one sounds a little...
Tactical.
Tactical. I mean, does this mean we're trying to, like, manipulate people's emotions?
That's a good question.
Right.
It's not about manipulation.
Okay.
It's about understanding.
Okay.
And acknowledging the other person's emotions.
Even if
you don't agree with them.
Yeah.
And Voss uses two main techniques here.
Okay.
Mirroring.
Yeah.
And labeling.
Yeah. I remember reading about these.
Yeah.
Mirroring is basically repeating back key words or phrases. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a verbal echo.
Yeah. I'm trying to picture myself doing this in a real conversation.
Right.
And I'm just like...
It feels a little awkward.
But
it's subtle.
Right.
I'm not trying to parrot them.
Okay.
It's more about picking up on those key words that reveal their emotional state and reflecting them back. It creates a sense of, like, we're on the same page, which is incredibly disarming.
Yeah.
And it triggers a very primal instinct.
What's that?
We naturally gravitate towards people who are like us. It's just human nature.
Oh, yeah. And Voss tells that hilarious story in the book about his student.
I love that story.
Right. Who used mirroring to subtly manage her.
Her boss's unreasonable demands.
Right. Her boss wanted paper copies.
No paper copies.
Of thousands of digital documents.
Right. And she just mirrors back.
2 copies.
Right.
With just a confused tone.
Yeah.
And it made the boss realize...
It's absurd.
How absurd the request was.
Yeah. And it's such a great example of, like...
It's brilliant.
How just by mirroring, you can kind of create that pause.
Exactly.
Give the other person a chance to reflect.
Right.
Without feeling attacked.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now labeling takes us a step further.
It does.
All right. So with labeling, we're actually calling out the emotion.
That we're sensing.
You're naming it.
Yeah. And isn't that risky?
That's a good point.
What if I get it wrong?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's about saying something like, it seems like you're frustrated. Or it sounds like you're concerned about the deadline.
So you're not necessarily saying, I know you're frustrated.
Right.
You're saying, it seems like.
It seems like.
Or it sounds like.
Exactly. So you're leaving the room for interpretation.
Yeah.
But you're also acknowledging that emotion.
And by doing that.
You're showing that you're listening.
Okay.
You're trying to understand their perspective.
And that can just instantly...
It can really diffuse tension and build rapport.
It's almost like you're giving them permission.
Yeah.
To feel those emotions.
Exactly.
And acknowledging.
You're validating their feelings.
Validating them.
Which makes them more willing.
Makes them more open.
To open up.
Didn't Voss use this with the New York Giants ticket holder?
Oh, yeah, the one who was behind on his payments?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. Instead of coming across as like a debt collector.
Right.
He acknowledged the difficult economic climate.
So he was like...
He said something like, it seems like a lot of fans are having a tough time right now.
And just that simple.
That simple act of labeling the emotion
yeah.
changed the entire tone of the conversation.
So mirroring creates that sense of connection.
Yeah.
Labeling kind of validates
those emotions.
Emotions were creating a space where they feel heard and understood.
Right.
And then that makes them more open.
To hearing our side.
To hearing our side.
Exactly.
I'm starting to see how powerful this stuff is.
It is powerful.
But it's not about agreeing with the other person.
It's not about saying that you agree with them.
Yeah.
It's about understanding their perspective so that you can act
so you can
influence them.
Influence them. Yeah.
Effectively.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
It's not about endorsing it.
Not about endorsing.
It's about understanding it.
Understanding.
Yeah. So we've covered the power of no.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about tactical empathy.
Yes.
What other tools
What else
does Voss have in his arsenal?
Well, one of the most effective ways to gain control in a negotiation is through calibrated questions.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly those starting with how or what.
I love calibrated questions.
They are powerful.
It's like you're putting the ball in their court.
Exactly.
You're making them the problem solver.
You're not making demands or arguing your point.
Yeah.
You're asking them to think through the situation, come up with solutions that work for both sides.
And Voss's student Ryan used this brilliantly to secure a last-minute flight change.
Oh, yeah, that's a great story.
Right, he asked the gate agent.
I love how he used his, like, late-night FM DJ voice.
Right, it was so smooth.
It was so smooth.
He was like, how am I supposed to make that meeting?
If I'm on this flight.
If I'm on this flight.
Brilliant.
Right.
That's so good.
And the gate agent just, like, scrambles.
Yeah, wants to be helpful.
For find him another flight.
Exactly.
It's so fascinating.
And what's so interesting about that story is it wasn't just the words. It was the delivery.
Right.
That calm, almost hypnotic voice.
Right.
Combined with that how question.
Yeah.
It shifted the dynamic entirely.
So we're seeing that it's not just what you say.
Exactly.
It's how you say it.
How you say it.
Those nonverbal cues, tone of voice, body language.
They all play a part.
They all play a crucial part.
Absolutely.
And speaking of hidden influences.
Yes.
Voss has this intriguing concept.
He does.
He calls black swans.
Black swans.
Black swans. They sound mysterious. And powerful. So fill me in.
They are both of those things.
What are they?
So think of them as hidden pieces of information.
Okay.
Those unexpected insights. That can completely change the course of a negotiation.
So they're often like buried beneath the surface.
They are. They're masked by those seemingly irrational behaviors that most people just dismiss.
Voss has that great saying, it's not crazy.
I love that.
It's a clue.
It's a clue.
So instead of getting frustrated
when
someone's acting in a way that doesn't make sense to us, we should be like...
digging deeper.
We should be digging deeper.
Trying to figure out what's driving that behavior.
Yeah.
We're like detectives hunting for those hidden clues.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And those clues can be found in their words, their tone of voice, their body language.
Their body language, for sure.
It's about active listening.
Yes.
Paying attention to inconsistencies.
Right.
And asking those probing questions.
Exactly.
That reveal the why behind their actions.
Of why.
The why.
That's the key.
Yeah, like when Voss negotiated with that farmer who was threatening to blow up his tractor.
In D.C.
In D.C.
Everyone thought he was crazy.
Right.
But Voss saw it as a clue.
Yeah.
By understanding the farmer's deep sense of betrayal by the government, his religion, as Voss calls it, he was able to de-escalate the situation and find a peaceful resolution.
That's incredible. So we're not just trying to get people to say yes. We're trying to understand their world, their motivations, their religion. Yeah, and that understanding is what allows us
to craft solutions
that truly work for both sides.
It's about turning a potentially adversarial situation into a collaborative one.
This is some powerful stuff.
It is.
We've covered so much ground already.
Right.
The power of no tactical empathy.
Yeah.
Calibrated questions.
Uh-huh.
And now black swans.
Black swans.
And it's like we're assembling this toolkit.
We are.
For navigating any negotiation.
That's the goal.
Whether it's like a high-stakes business deal or just trying to get our kids.
I'm just trying to get your kids.
To clean their rooms.
To clean their rooms, yeah.
Right.
Everyday life.
And before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, there's one more crucial element that we need to consider.
What's that?
And that is understanding
ourselves.
Your own negotiating style.
Right.
Oh, this is interesting. So it's not just about understanding the other person.
It's not just about them.
It's about
us too.
Knowing ourselves, our strengths and weaknesses.
What strengths are weaknesses?
Voss lays out 3 main negotiating archetypes.
He does the analyst, the accommodator, and the assertive.
The assertive.
And each one has...
Okay, so let's break these down.
Let's do it.
So analysts They're all about the data, right?
Yes. Data, logic, facts,
Yeah.
numbers. That's their language.
They thrive on information.
Yeah.
And they need to feel like they have a complete understanding
They need all the information.
of the situation before making a decision.
Yeah. And accommodators.
Accommodators, they're the peacemakers.
Yeah.
The relationship builders.
They
prioritize harmony.
Yeah.
And they're often willing to compromise to avoid conflict.
Yeah. They value connection, their collaboration.
They want everyone to be happy.
And then we have the assertives.
The assertives, the go-getters.
The go-getters.
They know what they want.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to go after it.
They're confident.
Confident.
Direct. Driven by results.
Driven by results, yeah.
Now, I'm assuming most people are kind of a blend.
Of course.
Of these styles.
Most people are a blend.
You're not purely one.
Not purely one or the other.
Or the other.
Yeah.
So it's like figuring out our own personal negotiation DNA.
Exactly.
Once we know our tendencies,
right,
we can play to our strengths.
Play to our strengths.
Yeah.
We can be more aware of our blind spots.
Aware of our weaknesses.
And I imagine understanding the other person's style
gives you a huge advantage.
Can also be a huge advantage.
Absolutely.
It's like having a roadmap to their decision-making process.
Exactly.
We'll dive deeper into these archetypes in the next part of our deep dive. But this is so fascinating. I'm already starting to rethink.
I know, me too.
How I approach negotiation.
It really changes the game.
Yeah, it's not just about winning or losing.
Yeah.
It's about understanding
the human dynamic.
The human dynamics at play.
At play.
And using that knowledge to create outcomes.
That work for everyone.
And work for everyone.
Exactly.
But for now, we're going to take a quick pause.
Yeah, grab a refill.
Grab a refill, and we'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
With even more insights from Chris Voss's negotiation playbook.
Don't go anywhere.
Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, negotiation ninjas, ready to unlock even more of Chris Voss's secrets.
You bet. We've already learned so much about using no to our advantage.
Yeah.
Tapping into tactical empathy. And even unearthing those mysterious black swans.
They are pretty mysterious.
So what else can we add?
What else can we add to that toolkit?
To our negotiation toolkit.
Well, now that you're starting to understand the psychology behind negotiation, let's talk about how to actually bend reality.
Bend reality.
In your favor.
Now that sounds like something straight out of a superhero movie.
But it's not about magic. It's about using something called prospect theory. To frame the negotiation in a way that plays to your strengths.
I vaguely remember prospect theory from Voss's book. Something about losses being more motivating than gains.
Yes, exactly.
Can you refresh my memory on that?
Yeah, so think about it. Have you ever noticed how much it stings to lose $20?
Oh, yeah.
Compared to the joy of finding $20.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's irrational, but losses just feel more impactful.
They do.
To us.
So in a negotiation, if you can frame your offer in a way that emphasizes what the other side stands to lose by not accepting it, you're much more likely
to get them to say yes.
So
it's not just about like presenting the benefits of my offer.
It's also about
highlighting
the potential downsides.
Downsides of saying no. Didn't Voss use this when he was negotiating the price for a group of actors?
Oh yeah, he did. He started by anchoring their expectations high. Mentioning a much larger budget than he actually had.
Oh wow.
And then he slowly lowered the offer, making it seem like a fantastic deal. Even though it was always within his target range.
So he set that initial anchor.
Exactly.
And that completely changed
their perception.
Their perception of what a fair price was.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. That's so clever.
It is.
So sneaky.
It's a good sneaky, though.
Yeah, good sneaky.
Yeah.
So we're bending reality. We're bending reality.
To our advantage.
To our advantage.
Okay. And then you mentioned letting the other guy go first.
Oh, yeah. Let them anchor first.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Doesn't that give them the upper hand?
That's what most people think.
Yeah, because I've always heard, like,
right,
you should never show your cards first.
Conventional wisdom.
Right.
But think of it as strategic intelligence gathering.
Okay.
When you let the other person anchor first, you gain valuable information.
About their expectations.
About their expectations. Their willingness to move.
So I'm not just sitting there passively.
Right.
I'm actively listening.
You're gathering information.
Analyzing.
You're analyzing their opening move, and then you can adjust your strategy accordingly.
It's like a chess game.
It is like a chess game.
You're anticipating their next move.
Exactly.
Right.
And then counter it effectively.
And while we're talking about gathering information,
Mm-hmm.
let's not forget about those non-salary terms. They can be a goldmine.
They can, especially when you're negotiating a job offer.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy to get fixated on that salary number.
The number.
The number.
But there's so much more
There's so much more to consider. Vacation time.
Right.
Work from home options.
Yeah.
Professional development opportunities.
Things that might actually be easier for the company to negotiate.
Than a straight up salary increase.
Oh, just a straight up salary increase, yeah.
So by focusing on those non-salary terms, you're not just expanding the pie.
Okay.
You're also demonstrating that you're thinking holistically about your role.
So you're showing them.
And your contribution.
You're not just in it for the paycheck.
Exactly.
You're thinking bigger picture.
You're thinking,
and that can make you a much more attractive candidate.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about bending reality.
We have.
We've talked about gathering intel.
Yes.
Now, let's face it, sometimes we have to deal with people.
Oh, yeah.
Who are less than honest.
Less than honest.
How do we spot those liars?
A good question.
And protect ourselves?
So Voss has spent years studying deception.
He has.
And he's got some incredibly insightful tips.
Lay it on me.
First and foremost, pay attention to their baseline.
Their baseline?
Their baseline. So notice their usual tone of voice.
Okay.
Their body language, their choice of words. Then look for any deviations from that baseline.
So we're looking for those subtle shifts.
Not exactly.
That might signal that they're trying to...
That something's off.
Yeah, pull something over on us.
Exactly.
What kind of shifts should we be looking for?
So liars often use more formal language. Avoiding contractions. They might also become evasive. Hesitant or defensive when you ask direct questions. And their body language might betray them too.
Like?
Fidgeting, avoiding eye contact, even subtle micro-expressions that flash across their face.
Okay, that reminds me of that story that Voss tells about negotiating with the kidnapper.
Oh, yeah.
Who was holding a British businessman hostage.
Intense story.
Right, and the kidnapper was like super aggressive, kept changing his demands.
Yeah, which immediately raised red flags for Voss.
And Voss, sensing deception, used calibrated questions
Smart.
to slow down the conversation.
Buy himself some time.
Buy himself some time.
Gather more information.
Gather more information.
He kept asking how questions, forcing the kidnapper to explain his logic.
Right.
Which eventually revealed inconsistencies and lies.
It's amazing how a simple how question can be so powerful.
They are powerful.
It puts the onus on them.
Exactly.
To justify their action.
And in the process, they often end up
exposing them.
Exposing their own deception.
Yeah, but let's say we've identified someone as a liar.
Okay.
What's the best way to deal with them?
That's a good question.
Should we confront them directly?
It depends on the situation.
Okay.
Sometimes a direct confrontation is necessary. But often it's more effective to subtly challenge their statements.
Okay.
Again, using labels and calibrated questions.
So instead of saying you're lying,
right,
we might say something like, it seems like you're hesitant to share all the details.
Help me understand why.
Help me understand why.
Right.
So we're not attacking them.
You're not attacking them.
We're inviting them.
You're inviting them.
To explain themselves.
To explain themselves.
Okay. And sometimes the best way to deal with a liar is to just walk away.
Yeah.
If you don't trust the person you're negotiating with.
If you don't trust them.
There's no point.
No point in continuing
the conversation.
Right.
No deal is better than a bad deal.
Better than a bad deal.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground on how to spot liars.
We have.
And protect ourselves.
Protect ourselves.
Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about how to secure agreements that actually sticks.
Right.
It's great to get someone to say yes.
In the moment.
In the moment.
But what good is it if they back out later?
Right.
So Voss emphasizes the importance of not just getting to yes, but also securing buy-in.
From everyone involved.
From everyone involved.
So it's not just about convincing the person across the table.
No.
It's about understanding the dynamic behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes.
Are there any other decision makers?
Right. Are there any behind-the-table players?
Behind-the-table players that we need to be aware of.
I've learned this lesson the hard way.
Oh, really?
I once negotiated a contract with a company, and I was so focused on getting the CEO on board that I completely overlooked his legal team.
Oh, no.
And they tore the contract apart.
Oh.
It was back to square one.
Ouch.
Yeah, I had completely underestimated
Their influence.
their influence.
That's a classic example.
Of not considering those behind-the-table players.
So how do we avoid making that mistake?
So before you even step into the negotiation,
Okay.
try to identify who those behind-the-table players are and
Yeah.
what their motivations might be.
Okay.
And then during the negotiation, you can use calibrated questions to subtly gather information about their perspectives and concerns.
So something like, how will this decision affect your team?
Exactly.
Or what are your colleagues' main priorities?
Exactly.
Okay.
So by understanding their perspectives, you can address their concerns up front and increase the likelihood
of getting everyone on board.
Of getting their buy-in.
Yeah, because a yes is meaningless.
A yes is meaningless.
If it doesn't have legs.
If it doesn't have legs.
And that leads us to one of Voss's
Yeah.
most profound insights.
This is a good one.
He says that yes is nothing.
Without how?
Without how.
Yes.
Okay, break this down for me.
Okay.
What does that even mean?
So it's not enough
to
just get someone to agree to something in principle.
Right.
You need to make sure they understand how they're going to implement it.
Okay.
What steps need to be taken, who's responsible for what.
So it's like we're creating a roadmap.
Exactly, a roadmap for success.
Ensuring that everyone is clear on the path forward.
Yes, and Voss has that amazing story about negotiating the release of an American hostage in the Ecuadorian jungle.
Right, the hostage's wife managed to negotiate a ransom.
Right, she gets the ransom.
But then the kidnappers are like...
But then they're like, we need the money now.
Right.
And of course that's impossible.
Right, she still needs to like...
She's got to sell some assets, raise the money.
And what does she do?
What does she do? She uses a calibrated question.
How can I do that when I still have to sell my cars and trucks?
Exactly. And it worked.
It worked.
The kidnappers put on the spot, agreed to wait.
She turned the tables.
She did.
And made them part of the solution.
Exactly. That's the power.
Of the how question.
It forces the other party to think through the logistics of implementation.
Implementation.
And come up with solutions.
That work.
That work for everyone.
For everyone.
So we're not just dictating terms, we're inviting them to collaborate.
We're inviting them.
Which creates a sense of shared ownership.
Exactly.
And increases the likelihood of success.
Increases the likelihood of success.
I'm starting to see how all these techniques, how questions the labels, even the subtle mirroring.
It all ties together.
They all tie back to that core principle.
Yeah, core principle.
Of giving the other side.
The illusion of control.
The illusion of control.
Yes.
Okay.
So by asking how questions, we're subtly leading them down a path.
Okay.
But it feels like they're in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
It's like we're playing chess and we've maneuvered them.
Into a position where they only have one good move left.
Right.
And it's the move we want them to make.
Yeah. It's like we're planting a seed.
Exactly.
And they're the ones watering it.
And watching it grow.
And watching it grow.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, let's circle back to those negotiating archetypes.
Okay.
I'm curious, which style do you think you are?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I've never really thought about it before.
Okay.
I'm probably a blend of analyst and accommodator.
Really?
I love digging into the data, analyzing situations.
Yeah.
But I also value relationships.
Yeah.
And building rapport.
What about you?
What about you?
I think I'm definitely more on the assertive side.
Okay.
I'm goal-oriented. I'm driven.
Makes sense.
And I'm not afraid to push for what I want.
I could see that.
But I'm also learning the importance of listening and being empathetic.
Right.
After all, even the most assertive negotiator needs to understand.
Needs to understand the other side.
The other side's perspective.
To be truly successful.
To be truly successful. That's a great insight.
And it leads perfectly into the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Where we'll explore how to tailor your approach based on your own negotiating style.
Okay.
And the style of the person you're dealing with.
Stay tuned, listeners.
Stay tuned.
Because we're about to unlock the secrets to navigating even the most complex negotiations. Welcome back, fellow negotiators. We are in the final stretch of our deep dive into the world of Chris Voss and his incredible negotiation techniques.
We've talked about bending reality, tactical empathy, calibrated questions, and how to spot those sneaky liars. But there's one more powerful tool we need to explore.
All right.
The art of unearthing those game-changing black swans.
Those hidden pieces of information that can completely shift the balance of power in a negotiation? I'm ready to learn how to become a black swan hunter.
All right.
Where do we start?
Well, one of the most effective ways to uncover those hidden gems is by tapping into what Voss calls the similarity principle.
The similarity principle.
Right.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's a fundamental human truth. We tend to trust and connect with people who are similar to us.
Oh, absolutely.
We've all experienced this. Think about those instant bonds you form with people who share your passions, your background, or even your sense of humor.
Oh, yeah. It's like you're speaking the same language even if you've just met.
Exactly. So, in a negotiation, if you can find those points of commonality, even seemingly small details, you can build rapport and increase the likelihood of reaching a favorable agreement.
So how do we actually do this? Is it about pretending to be someone we're not?
Yeah.
Trying to force a connection where there isn't one?
Not at all. It's about being genuinely curious about the other person and actively listening for those shared interests or experiences.
Right.
It could be something as simple as a shared alma mater, a love for a particular sport, or even a similar experience in a previous job.
Voss tells that fascinating story about how he used the similarity principle to build rapport with a potential terrorist recruit.
Right.
They discovered they both had a passion for the same obscure poet, which created an unexpected connection and opened the door for a more productive conversation.
It's incredible how those seemingly small details can have such a huge impact. But remember, finding black swans often requires us to challenge our assumptions. Sometimes what appears irrational on the surface is actually a clue to something deeper.
I love that Voss quote. It's not crazy, it's a clue.
Yes.
It reminds us that when someone is acting in a way that doesn't make sense to us, it's usually because we're missing some crucial piece of information.
Exactly. Instead of dismissing their behavior, we should be asking ourselves, what's the hidden motivation driving this? What am I not seeing?
So it's like we're detectives piecing together a puzzle. We're looking for those subtle inconsistencies, those clues that reveal the true story.
That's a great analogy. And those clues can be found in their words, their tone of voice, their body language. It's about paying attention to the details, listening between the lines, and asking those probing questions that unlock the why behind their actions.
Like when Voss's client was struggling to get paid by a contractor, the contractor kept making excuses, delaying payment. It seemed completely unreasonable. But when the client dug a little deeper, he discovered that the contractor was going through a difficult divorce and was struggling financially.
And that understanding changed everything. Once the client saw the situation from the contractor's perspective, he was able to work out a payment plan that worked for both of them.
It's amazing how a little empathy can transform a seemingly impossible situation. It's about remembering that we're all human. We all have our own stories, our own motivations.
And speaking of motivations, understanding your counterpart's religion is crucial for unearthing those black swans.
And by religion, we don't necessarily mean their spiritual beliefs, right? It's more about understanding their core values, their motivations, their worldview.
Exactly. What are their non-negotiables? What are their deepest fears and aspirations? What do they truly value? Once you understand their religion, you can frame your arguments and offers in a way that resonates with them on a much deeper level.
Voss's story about negotiating with the farmer who was threatening to blow up his tractor is a powerful example of this. By understanding the farmer's deep sense of betrayal by the government, his religion, Voss was able to de-escalate the situation and find a peaceful resolution.
It's a remarkable testament to the power of empathy and understanding. It shows that even in the most extreme situations, human connection can be the key to unlocking a positive outcome.
Okay, so we've talked about black swans, the similarity principle. Now let's bring it all together and talk about how we can apply these techniques based on our own negotiating style and the style of the person we're dealing with.
Remember those 3 negotiating archetypes we discussed earlier: analyst, accommodator, and assertive. Each style has its own strengths and weaknesses, and understanding those nuances can give you a significant advantage.
Okay, let's do a quick recap. Analysts, they're all about the data. They thrive on information logic and objective reasoning.
So if you're dealing with an analyst, come prepared with facts, figures, and well-reasoned arguments. Don't try to appeal to their emotions. Focus on the logic.
Accommodators, on the other hand, are all about relationships and harmony. They're the peacemakers, the collaborators.
So with an accommodator, focus on building rapport, finding common ground, and creating win-win solutions. Emphasize the collaborative nature of the negotiation.
And then we have the assertives, the confident, direct, goal-oriented negotiators.
With an assertive, Be prepared to stand your ground, and don't be afraid to push back. They respect strength and decisiveness. But remember, even the most assertive negotiator benefits from understanding the other side's perspective.
So it's not about trying to fit people into neat little boxes.
Right.
It's about recognizing their tendencies and adapting our approach accordingly.
Exactly. And remember, self-awareness is key. Understanding your own negotiating style is just as important as understanding the style of the person you're dealing with.
This has been an incredible journey into the world of negotiation. I feel like I've learned so much. What are some key takeaways that our listeners can start applying in their own lives right now?
First and foremost, remember that negotiation is a skill that can be learned and honed with practice. Don't be afraid to experiment, to try out these techniques and see what works best for you.
Absolutely. And remember, every interaction is an opportunity to negotiate. It's not just about formal business deals. It's about navigating everyday life, asking for a raise, getting a better price on a car, even resolving conflicts with family and friends.
Absolutely. And the most important takeaway of all, negotiation doesn't have to be a battle. It can be a collaborative process, a way to build relationships, create value, and find solutions that work for everyone.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Chris Voss's negotiation techniques, we want to leave you with this. Go out there, negotiate with confidence, and remember, never split the difference.
And be sure to join us next time for another deep dive into the world of fascinating ideas and practical knowledge.
Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those negotiation muscles flexed.